All right, so you're getting ready for a mountain guide interview. That's fantastic. We've got a whole bunch of resources from RoleCatcher to help you totally ace it, really turn you into the ideal candidate. We're going to be covering some common questions, some real insider tips, and even how RoleCatcher's AI can give you that extra edge you need to succeed.
Yeah, it's way more than just, like knowing how to tie your knots or something like that. We're really going to unpack like what those interviewers are looking for and how to really, show off your skills in a way that makes you stand out from everybody else.
Exactly. So, but before we jump into the questions, let's kind of set the scene a little bit for anyone who might not be, totally familiar with what a mountain guide actually does.
Yeah, for sure. So think of it as like a more than just a guide, right? You're a leader, you're a teacher, you're a safety expert, all kind of rolled into one. You're taking people into these like incredible natural environments, often like mountainous terrain, and leading them through, hikes and climbs, ski trips, all sorts of adventures.
And one thing that the RoleCatcher resources really highlight is that it's not all about just like physical strength and endurance.
Yeah.
Communication, risk assessment, leadership, all these things are like super crucial elements. In fact, they mentioned that something like 57% of the role relies on active listening, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's right. You need to be able to really like read your clients and understand their needs and, adjust your approach to match like what they need. It's all about building that trust and rapport so that everybody feels safe and comfortable, with you kind of being in charge.
Okay, so with that picture in mind, let's dive into those interview questions. The first one is like such a classic. Describe your previous experience as a mountain guide. Now, I know you might be thinking like, well, I'm applying for this job because I don't have tons of experience, but that's okay. What's the interviewer really looking for here?
They want to see that passion, and they want to see like any relevant experience you have, even if it's not like, formal guiding experience. Think about volunteer work, or maybe you assisted some experienced guides, or even leading trips for, your friends and family. It's all about showcasing your skills and how you've handled different situations you've been in.
So instead of just saying like, oh, I've been hiking for years, what would like a strong answer actually sound like?
Think about specific examples. Like maybe you volunteer with like a local search and rescue team, or you put together this like challenging, multi-day hike for a group of friends. Talk about the terrain, the challenges you faced, and how you made sure that everybody was safe and, having a good time.
And if you haven't really had a chance to like lead in a professional setting yet, how can you still make your answer like compelling?
Focus on transferable skills. Maybe you worked in like a high-pressure customer service role where communication and problem-solving were super important, Or maybe you're a really experienced rock climber who loves teaching other people how to climb. It's about connecting the dots for the interviewer and showing them you have what it takes to be a great guide.
And don't forget to mention like any relevant certifications you have. Even if you're just starting out, having like a wilderness first aid certification shows that you take safety seriously and you've, invested in your professional development.
Yeah, for sure. Those certifications show you're committed to this field, even if you're still building your experience.
Okay, let's go on to another question that's really all about safety. How do you assess the risk of a particular route or climb?
Ooh, this is a crucial one because it shows off like how you think analytically and how you put safety first, above everything else. They want to know that you have a system for risk assessment, not just a gut feeling.
So walk us through that process. What are some of the key factors you think about before you head out?
First things first, weather conditions. I always check like multiple sources, not just one forecast, because mountain weather is unpredictable. Then it's avalanche reports. If it's snowy trail conditions, recent trip reports from other climbers or hikers.
So you're really gathering intel from every possible source.
You got it. And then you got to consider the experience level and the fitness of the group you're taking out. A route that's good for seasoned climbers might be way too much for beginners.
So it's all about tailoring your assessment to that specific group and what they can handle.
Right. And of course, I always factor in my own physical and mental state too. If I'm not feeling 100%, might adjust the plan or even call it off. Safety first, always.
That's so important. Now, you mentioned using trip reports as one of your sources. Can you talk about that a little bit more? What are trip reports and how do they help you assess risk?
Trip reports are basically stories from other people who have done that same climb or hike recently. They can give you really valuable insights into current conditions, potential hazards, even just the overall experience. Like a recent trip report might mention a rock fall somewhere or point out a section of the trail that's really tough.
So it's kind of like crowdsourcing safety information, getting those real-time updates from people who have actually been there.
Exactly. It's a fantastic resource for staying informed and being as prepared as you can be.
And now for the avoid doing this tip. What's a common mistake people make when answering this question?
Trying to sound overconfident, I think, or like downplaying the risks. The interviewer wants to see that you understand that the mountains are serious business and things can go wrong. It's okay to admit that there are risks as long as you show you know how to manage them.
Great advice.
Mm.
Okay, let's switch gears to a question that's all about handling those tricky interpersonal situations. How do you handle difficult clients or unexpected situations on a climb?
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
This one is all about showing off your communication skills and your ability to stay cool under pressure. Like you can problem solve when things get tough.
So it's not just about the technical skills, it's about being a people person too.
You got it. You could be the best climber in the world, but if you can't communicate with your clients and manage their expectations, you're not going to be a successful guide.
Okay, so how would you go about answering this question? What are the key elements of a good answer?
First, you want to highlight your communication style. Do you focus on active listening? Do you try to build rapport with people before the climb even starts? Do you set clear expectations from the get-go?
And then just like with that last question, share a specific story that shows those skills in action.
Right. Describe a time when you had to deal with a difficult client or something unexpected happened on a climb. Maybe a client was pushing themselves too hard and you had to convince them to turn around. Or maybe the weather changed and you had to pick a new route.
And the important thing here is to talk about how you solved the problem. How did you handle the situation and what was the result?
Exactly. They want to see that you can think on your feet, make good decisions, and communicate well even when things get stressful.
So storytelling is really key here. Instead of just saying, oh, I'm good with difficult situations, you're painting a picture for them, showing them how you've handled those challenges in the past.
Exactly. And it's okay to be honest and say it wasn't always easy. The important part is showing that you learned from those experiences and grew as a guide because of them.
Speaking of learning and growth, this seems like a good place to bring in some insights from the RoleCatcher Career Guide. They talk a lot about getting hands-on experience even before you have an actual guiding job.
Yeah, definitely. Volunteering is a great way to get your foot in the door and get some valuable experience. Look for chances to help out experienced guides, maybe on group hikes or even just helping with equipment maintenance.
It's all about showing you're proactive and you really care about this profession. And then when you're answering that experience question, you could say something like, well, I haven't guided professionally yet, but I've been volunteering with this local outdoor adventure group, helping guides and learning the ropes.
Exactly. It shows you're taking charge of your own development and that you're serious about becoming a guide.
Okay, so volunteering is a great way to build experience. But what about certifications? Those seem super important in the guiding world.
They are. The guide specifically mentions the Wilderness First Responder, the WFR, the Avalanche Safety Training AST, and specific mountain guiding certs as being essential.
And these are just pieces of paper. They're like badges of honor, showing you're committed to safety and professionalism.
Absolutely. They show you have a certain level of expertise, and they give potential employers confidence in your abilities.
Now, let's say you're in the interview, and they ask you, can you describe your first aid and rescue skills? How would you weave those certifications into your answer?
Instead of just saying, I have my WFR, you can explain what that actually means. You could say something like, I'm a certified wilderness first responder, which means I've had extensive training in handling medical emergencies out in the backcountry. I'm confident in my ability to assess and treat injuries, provide first aid, and make good decisions under pressure.
Yeah, that's way more powerful than just listing the certification. You're showing them the skills and knowledge you got from the training.
Right. And it's the same with the AST. Instead of just mentioning it, you could say, I've completed my avalanche safety training, where I learned how to assess snowpack stability, identify potential hazards, and make smart decisions about choosing routes and traveling in avalanche terrain.
Wow, that really shows a deeper level of understanding. It's not just checking a box. It's about having the knowledge and skills to make good decisions in those challenging environments.
Exactly. And if you're going for a more advanced guiding role, you can even talk about future certifications you're aiming for. You could say, right now I have a basic mountain guiding certification, but I'm working towards my international mountain leader qualification to expand my skills and take on tougher expeditions in the future.
That shows you're ambitious and committed to growing professionally.
Uh, it tells them you're not just looking for a job, you're looking to build a whole career in this field.
Okay, so we've talked about experience certifications and even how to weave those into your answers to impress the interviewer. But let's not forget about RoleCatcher's AI and how it can, like, take your prep to the next level.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Imagine you spent some time crafting your answers to those interview questions. With RoleCatcher, you can upload them to their platform, and their AI will actually analyze them, comparing them to that specific job description you're going for.
So it's not just generic feedback, it's tailored to the exact role I'm applying for.
Exactly. Their AI will point out areas you can improve, suggest ways to make your answers more interesting and concise and, more relevant to what that employer needs. It's like having a personal editor for your interview responses.
That's so cool. And it's not just text-based feedback, right?
Yeah.
They have that AI-powered video practice too.
That's right. You can record yourself answering the questions, and their AI will watch it and assess your body language, your tone of voice, your pacing, everything.
It's like having a virtual coach right there in your pocket.
Exactly. And all of this feedback is to help you stand out from the crowd, not just with your qualifications, but also with how you present yourself and how you communicate.
Okay, so we've laid the groundwork for acing those first few questions. When we come back, we'll tackle some more questions about risk management, group dynamics, and those like emergency situations.
Welcome back. Hope you're feeling ready to tackle some more of these interview questions. Remember, we're not just going for good answers here. We want those exceptional answers that really show off, your expertise and your passion for this whole mountain guiding thing.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of expertise, I'm curious about how, aspiring guides can really show that off even if they don't have a ton of formal guiding experience.
Yeah.
The RoleCatcher Career Guide talks about understanding the different stages of a mountain guide career, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, it's like a roadmap.
Yeah.
Understanding how things usually progress from entry level to senior guide gives you a clear picture of where you fit in and what skills you got to work on for each stage.
So how can knowing this actually help you during the interview?
Well, it lets you talk about your career goals, and show that you have a long-term vision. Like, let's say you're applying for an entry-level position. You could say something like, I'm really excited about starting my career as a mountain guide and, getting that hands-on experience assisting senior guides. I want to learn from the best and eventually work towards leading my own group someday.
It shows them you're not just looking for a job, you're looking for a career path.
Exactly. And if you're aiming for a more senior role, you could say, I've been guiding for a while now, and I'm looking for a leadership position where I can mentor and train new guides coming up. I'm passionate about sharing my knowledge and helping to, develop the next generation of guides.
It really highlights your experience and your leadership qualities and shows how your goals match up with what the company needs.
Right. And the cool thing is that RoleCatcher's Career Guide actually gives you a sample profile for each of those career stages.
So you can actually see what success looks like at each level, and you can tailor your answers to match. It's like a cheat sheet for your career. Okay, let's get back to those interview questions. The next one is, how do you stay up to date with current industry trends and techniques?
This one is all about showing that you're dedicated to always learning. Mountain guiding is constantly changing the techniques, the safety protocols, everything's evolving, and employers want to know that you're staying ahead of the game.
So how can someone actually show that they're doing that?
Talk about memberships, like in the American Mountain Guides Association, or if you subscribe to any industry journals.
And don't forget about workshops or seminars or online courses you've taken to keep your skills sharp.
For sure. Even just mentioning that you follow, influential guides or outdoor organizations on social media shows you're paying attention to what's new and what's happening.
So many ways to stay in the loop. What should we avoid saying here, though?
Definitely don't imply that you know everything already you know. The mountains are like a lifelong classroom, and the best guides are always learning and growing.
Or let's tackle a question that's all about managing a group. How do you manage group dynamics on a climb? This feels kind of similar to that difficult client question, but with a more big picture focus.
You're right. It's about managing the whole group, proactively creating a positive atmosphere and dealing with any conflicts before they blow up.
So what would make a good answer here?
Start by describing how you set up the group dynamics before you even start climbing. Do you have a briefing to lay out the expectations and encourage everyone to communicate? Do you do any icebreakers so people get to know each other?
And then, just like with that difficult client question, share an example of how you handled a group dynamic challenge.
Like you could say, on this recent multi-day trek, I noticed some tension building between a couple of group members. So during a rest stop, I facilitated a conversation where they could each share their perspective and we were able to find a compromise so the group could continue the trip smoothly.
That's a great example. It shows you're not afraid to address conflict and you have the skills to do it well. What about pitfalls to avoid with this question?
Don't pretend like group dynamics are never an issue. Acknowledging the challenges and talking about your strategies for building a cohesive group, that's what will impress them. They want to see you're prepared for the reality of guiding a bunch of different personalities.
Okay, on to question number 7. How do you manage risk when guiding a group of clients? This seems like a bit of a combo of the risk assessment question and the group dynamics one.
You're right on. It's about showing you can assess those risks, make decisions that put safety first, and communicate those decisions to your group effectively.
So how would you suggest tackling this one?
Start with how you assess risks, like we talked about before, but then focus on how you tailor that to the specific group you're with.
So like factoring in their experience, their fitness level, any concerns they might have.
Exactly. And then share an example of a time you had to make a tough call about risk management while guiding a group.
Like maybe a time when you had to change the route because the weather did something crazy, or you adjusted the pace to match the group's ability.
Perfect examples. And remember, focus on how you explained the decision to the group, how you dealt with any concerns, and made sure everyone felt safe and informed.
What about pitfalls here?
Don't make it sound like you're always going to stick to the plan no matter what. Flexibility and adaptability are key in the mountains. Things change fast, and you got to be able to adjust while keeping everyone's safety top priority.
Right, next up. Can you describe your experience with technical climbing equipment? This one gets back to the nitty-gritty of the gear.
It does. They want to make sure you have that basic understanding of the equipment used in climbing and that you can use it safely and correctly. This is your chance to show off your technical knowledge.
So how should we approach this one?
Start by talking about your experience with the most common types of equipment. Like harnesses, belay devices, carabiners, ropes. Be specific about the brands and models, and how you've used them in different situations.
And then, just like with the first aid question, give a quick example of a time you had to use this stuff in a real-life climb. Maybe you had to set up a rappel or belay someone on a tricky pitch.
Exactly. And if you have any special training in technical climbing, this is the time to mention it. Like if you've taken a course in rescue techniques or ice climbing, definitely highlight those skills.
What if you don't have a ton of experience with technical climbing equipment, though?
Just be upfront about it, but emphasize that you're eager to learn and that you're good at following instructions and safety procedures. You can say something like, my experience with technical climbing gear is mostly from recreational climbing, but I'm really keen to learn those advanced techniques and get more experience with different types of gear. And if you've done anything to improve your skills, like reading books or watching videos, mention that too.
Okay, and finally the big one. How do you handle emergency situations on a climb? This is where you really show that you can stay calm when things get crazy, assess the situation quickly, and put your group's safety above everything else. It's about leadership and making decisions when the stakes are high.
You nailed it. They want to see that you can think clearly and have a plan when things go south, which, let's face it, happens sometimes in the mountains.
So what are the key parts of a good answer here?
First, lay out your general approach to emergencies. Do you have a mental checklist? Do you prioritize communication, first aid, evacuation? Walk them through how you think.
And then, like with those other behavioral questions, share a story that really grabs their attention.
Exactly. Tell them about a time you dealt with an emergency on a climb, whether it was a minor injury, a sudden storm, or something more serious. Highlight how you stayed calm, made those tough decisions, and got your group back safe.
This is where you prove you're not just a guide. You're a leader, someone they can trust when things go wrong.
Exactly. And a mistake people make is downplaying how serious emergencies are or acting like they've never been in one. Anyone who spends time in the mountains will face challenges, and it's important to acknowledge that and show what you learned from it.
Right, being prepared and having a clear head that's crucial when things go sideways in the mountains.
It's
about having the knowledge, the skills, and the mental toughness to handle whatever comes your way.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Now remember, all these answers we've talked about are just a starting point. To really stand out, you gotta tailor your responses to that specific job and the company culture.
True. And that's where RoleCatcher's AI is so helpful. Their AI can analyze job descriptions and figure out the most important skills for that role. So you're not just guessing what they want, you're getting real data-driven insights.
And then their AI gives you feedback on your answers, suggests ways to improve, and helps you customize those responses to that specific company and position.
It's like having an interview expert coaching you through your practice sessions. And it goes even further. Their AI can help you optimize your resume too, highlighting the skills and experiences that matter most. So you're presenting yourself as the perfect fit right from the start.
Exactly. And here's the best part. It's not just about nailing the interview. It's about getting noticed. Employers actually use RoleCatcher to find candidates. So if you have a profile and you optimize it with their AI, you're making yourself searchable to those potential employers. It's like passive job hunting.
That's amazing. So let's say RoleCatcher's AI is look at the job description for your dream mountain guiding job, and it says risk management, communication, and technical climbing skills are the top 3 things they want.
Okay, so how do you tweak those answers to the 9 questions we talked about to really emphasize those skills?
Well, for the risk assessment question, you could go into even more detail about your process. Maybe mention specific risk matrices or scoring systems you use.
And for the difficult client question, you could really focus on how you used clear communication and de-escalation to resolve things safely.
Right. And for the technical climbing equipment question, you could describe a time you used a specific piece of gear that's super relevant to the job. Show them you're proficient and knowledgeable.
So by using RoleCatcher's AI, you're not just answering the questions, you're strategically highlighting the skills that matter most to that employer. You're turning your answers into a powerful way to show off your qualifications and how well you fit the role.
Exactly. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into the mountain guide interview. When we come back, we'll wrap things up with some final thoughts and a little challenge to help you keep moving towards becoming a successful and impactful mountain guide. Okay, we're back and ready for our final descent, I guess you could say, on this mountain guide interview prep journey. We've climbed those interview questions, we mapped out career paths, and we even got a little help from AI with RoleCatcher.
Yeah, it's been quite a climb, hasn't it? But just like when you reach that summit, the view from here is pretty amazing.
That's a good way to put it. So what does this all mean for you, the listener, as you're, getting ready for that big interview?
It means you're not just walking in, you're going in prepared. You know what they're looking for, you've got those stories ready to go, and you've even used AI to make your answers even better. You're not just a candidate, you're like a strategic climber ready to conquer that interview.
I like that analogy a lot.
Yeah.
And remember, behind every question they ask is a chance to really show them, how much you love the mountains, your dedication to keeping everyone safe, and your ability to inspire and lead people. Let that passion come through, because that's what really makes a great guide stand out.
For sure. Skills and experience are important, but passion is like contagious. It's what makes people want to follow you to the top of that mountain.
Yeah, totally. Before we wrap up, I wanted to go back to something we talked about earlier, sustainable tourism. The source material mentioned it as a big trend in the industry.
It's more than a trend, it's a responsibility, right? As mountain guides, we have a real opportunity to teach our clients about leave no trace principles, support local communities, and advocate for responsible travel in these amazing places.
So as you're getting ready for your interview, think about how you would incorporate, sustainable practices into your guiding style. How can you minimize your impact while still giving people those incredible life-changing experiences?
It's about finding that balance between adventure and taking care of the environment. We want people to feel that power of the mountains, but we also want to make sure those mountains are there for everyone to enjoy in the future.
Well said. Okay, that's a wrap on our deep dive into the Mountain Guide interview. We hope this has given you the knowledge, the insights, and the confidence to go out there and crush it. Remember, preparation is your base camp, passion is your compass, and RoleCatcher is your trusty Sherpa. Good luck with your interview, and as always, keep exploring.